All right. Well, welcome to the webinar presentation today. Again, my name is Walker Thompson and certainly do appreciate your time and attendance and showing up. The goal of the presentation today is in a few parts. One is a quick introduction to when to manage and fundamentally how we see ourselves. Number two is a quick overview of our dashboard functionality and how it ties into the enterprise functionality as well. Labor scheduling, and then finally inventory management. That'll round out the application overview, and then we'll discuss the deployment process as well. Now, if you have questions, you see that my email is posted below as well as my phone number. So feel free to actually contact me after this presentation to again obtain maybe the presentation video and or if you have questions about our technology. Happy to follow up with you. So let's go ahead and begin. This presentation will last another 25 minutes, so hang on. Okay, let's talk a little bit about how we see ourselves. And what we've learned in the 8 years we've been in business and thousands of different ways to do inventory and thousands of different ways in which we've done labor management and scheduling and reporting is that a lot of systems out there actually are jobs. They are big jobs that cause a lot of time sink into the job. So, what do I mean by that? Most operations are managed in a spreadsheet. That's been our experience, or disparate systems. I'm logging in here, I'm logging in there. There's no central accountability function. So, as a manager who's mainly responsible for running the day to day operations and then reporting back up, they're running from spreadsheet to spreadsheet to spreadsheet. In addition to that, system to system to system. So each time they do that, they're spending hours in those spreadsheets or in those systems confirming that they've done things correctly. Well, that takes away from some critical tasks. And the spreadsheet ends up becoming a job, and the jobs worth doing don't get done. So for example, your web strategy and web marketing and or guest management, those things are pushed a little bit to the side each and every day, resulting in hours and hours spent away from these important tasks that do generate revenue and back into said systems. So, our theory is we're somewhat of a spreadsheet killer, and we are mostly trying to unite systems into one source of functionality. So that's how we see ourselves, and that's how a lot of customers have fed back to us and how we account for ROI. Again, time saving, systems and processes, consistency, and finally lowering labor and food costs. So let's talk a little bit about how we actually do that. So here on your screen, you're actually seeing our dashboard. This is actually one version of the dashboard we have today. You have the opportunity to customize that dashboard as you see fit. So there's no real reason to think, oh gosh, I have other issues that I'm tracking on. I want to make sure that those issues are front and center. Absolutely. You get to personalize this as you see fit. How we work is we're pulling data from each individual POS station or server, depends on the POS architecture. But that data is polling every 15 minutes and sometimes holding up to 5 years. Now, we can mix and match different point of sale systems, just like we can mix and match different concepts. So don't think that everything has to be completely uniform. A lot of what we do is help uniform that with menu mapping, as well as putting reports into certain configurations so that you're getting data specific to what you need to see within all your organizations and all your locations. Now, in this case, this dashboard has some other functionality that might be outside of your thinking of what Window Manage does. So you can see here on the left-hand side, I have a calendar tool for maybe events and special occasions. I have a messaging capability that I can send out messages and then track this like an HR log. There's task management, like a punch list I can do. There's a document repository that holds roughly 20, each document or video can be 20 megs per file, so quite large. And there's also a manager logbook as well. A lot of cross communication and collaboration can occur using this manager logbook function. A lot of our folks will add this to their dashboard. Now you can see here in some cases there's charts and graphs. And if I want to expand on this view, which I'm seeing from the dashboard, I can open up this report and I can watch this report start to generate. And I can further my query as well. So if I want to change it maybe to a specific store or maybe change to a start date, no matter what, I'm doing all this in my Smurf pajamas inside of my own home. Or sometimes my managers might do this work and they don't actually have to log into the point of sale system or pull up a PO or a spreadsheet, maybe from one of your servers. All this is available for me as I go throughout my day. Now, again, a lot of people will add specific modules relative to their business. A daily sales report, like you see here, is pretty consistently added to each account that we see. I can expand certain programs of the report, showing my category of sales, as you can see here. We're also pulling in labor details. So, not just sales information. If you're clocking in and clocking out on the point of sale, we're also seeing that clock in and clock out data and wage data as well. So we can ultimately track your percent of net sales relative to the job functions and or go deeper with employees. So how we do that is we have a reports tab. So dashboards are really helpful, absolutely, but then you need to go maybe to the next level. Now we have 114 reports here. Some of these are actually created by myself or other demo users. And by the way, if you do need access to this demo account, I'd be happy to provide that to you. If you send me an email, I'll put my email address back on the screen. But 114 reports, I'm not going to look at every one of these. So what I can do is I can favorite these reports and make them a personal favorite, maybe a favorite for myself or the organization, maybe a favorite for all the stores as well. But all these are listed here. So these are reports relative to the modules that I'm using. So it could be inventory management, it could be labor scheduling, it could be just my sales data. Each one of these is compiled into this organizational structure here. So they're cataloged. Now, if we go to the inventory solution, inventory reports, there's a lot we can look at. And when you launch with our inventory and recipe solution, you're getting, again, every one of these reports. So for example, my inventory fluctuation report is going to show me basically the results of my own commodity market or what I have been spending by vendor over time based on a percentage. So I can see if that cost has gone up or down. I also have my inventory usage report as well. This one's probably the king of our inventory reports. And this is showing you what you've counted last week, what you've purchased, what you've used relative to what you've counted, as well as what you use in your sales. So you can see what you sold versus what's missing from the shelf and track variance. This is a key indicator on how well our solution is helping you lower your labor cost. And that key indicator is variance. So if your variance cost has gone down, our solution is working. And this is how we judge part of our ROI. If we go into labor details, like I mentioned before, there's an employee time slip report. So for those of you have concerns about what are we spending on a labor, what are the overtime hours, you can see that here. A new report we've added is the employee scheduled versus actual per shift with variance. We actually tried to find a longer name for this report, couldn't find it. Anyway, so if we open this report, what we're going to see is a report showing the overall use what's been scheduled, what actually happened insofar as the clock in and clock outs and any variance on top of that. So what this is going to show you, ultimately speaking, is did we actually use the scheduling system correctly? Okay, so I just went for last week, scheduled start, scheduled end, clock in and clock out. Let's scroll down to the bottom here and see the result. Okay, now we had scheduled 138 hours. You can see the actual hours were 231. Now, in my business, when I was using the labor scheduling solution by One to Manage, I found this happened somewhat a lot initially. And then all of a sudden, these two numbers were exactly 100% the same because this is your budget. You want to spend only 138 hours, yet your manager's spending way more than that. So in this case, 92 hours difference. So that's a problem. That's cost that you weren't anticipating. That can really hurt your organizational profit. So some reports to look at. You can see how we actually load this data when it comes to your query. Now, on the alerts function, we also have some capability to send out data and or triggered based alerts beyond just going into the dashboard and reviewing what you might see on a daily basis. So one of the things I mentioned earlier, just showed was labor costs. So if that's a concern of ours, let's look at that. Now we can click on the trigger, or excuse me, click on the alert, and this is where we get to define the details. So if we go below zero labor costs, maybe that's a worry, but let's just say it's $1,000 we're worried about. If we ever go over that number by these locations, let's just say right now we're worried about project P. If we ever go over that number, I want all my enterprise users and or executive staff, as well as the store manager at that location, to be alerted. They're going to get a text message and or email letting them know that they've reached that amount. Now imagine what that does to a manager using their phone. You just went over your labor hours. What are you going to do about it? I'm going to start solving problems. So data is key to helping your operators, your managers run their business more effectively. They're not going to sit in front of the point of sale system looking at clock in and clock out hours all day long. This system helps them do that with a tool they already have, their cell phone. Now let's go to subscriptions. Now, another way to actually send data out, again, beyond just what you might use inside of the dashboard or looking at reports or alerts, is actually subscribing to a particular report. So, any of our reports, either A, that you create, or B, that we have as standard, can be sent out to the team. So, I can choose my recipients, maybe, okay, everyone, I want this to be the entire organization. And maybe we have certain groups, so we could have kiosk locations, different real estate types, districts or regions, but we'll say all stores right now. I'm going to choose my report, and it's a new store opening, so we're going to look at our adjustment detail. And if you remember, that report was actually on our dashboard. In that adjustment detail, it's important that we know how many voids, comps, because these things happen with stores that are just opening. So now if I look at a time period, let's just look at yesterday or maybe last week, whatever you want to do, and load this as a PDF. So what I'm doing next is changing the subscription, and I'm saying new store worries. And we're going to say we want to receive this daily. And then my start date, because this is a new store it's opening, is going to be the 9th. That's when the store opens. And we're just going to run this all the way through the 13th. And that's it. We're going to receive that report, and we can receive that report actually based on a time trigger. So let's say it's maybe after the lunch day part, around 3 p.m.-ish, and that's where we're going to receive that report. I don't have to log in. It comes right to me to my phone. I can scroll around, look at the data, good to go. So that's another way we're exposing and extending this information beyond what you see on the dashboard. We also have that capability inside of our mobile solution, our tablet solution. As you might have seen in a couple of new internet trend reports, tablets are growing faster than any desktop sales has ever happened in the history of computers. So tablets are being used very much so at operators or with operators and as well as locations and executives. So we support tablets very well. You can look at all your reports here at this location. You can do counts, you can do transfers, a bunch of other tools. We'll get into this in momentarily, but those report options are available for you too. Okay, let's switch gears. Now we're going to go into the inventory functionality as well as labor scheduling. The first place we're going is inventory. Now I'm going to go into the settings functionality because I want to give you a little bit of sense of what we actually do and how we're structured. So in our deployment, we take a lot of care to make sure whatever inventory is built is done very properly and carefully. And the reason we do that is because we know that it's garbage in and garbage out. And the last thing we want to do, and for you to do in working through this system, is have an item that's not really put together properly, which results in false reports and or issues beyond just reporting maybe in the actual operation. So we're very careful here, and we're very mindful. And we're teaching you how to actually implement this system, or in most cases, I should say, doing the work ourselves and then providing you results of that work. But the first step is taking the product order guide from all of your vendors. Now, some of those vendors might be an integrated vendor like Cisco, Maines, US Foods, MBM, McLean, and several others, GFS, Reinhardt soon to be added as well. So those product order guides we'll receive from the vendor. Next, what we're doing is we're putting that into this organizational program. So each item is cataloged properly. In other words, the case size, the pack, with units of measure, any specific conversions that need to go a part of that, what physical inventory is it a part of, what category is it a part of. There's some thought that goes into this because this is what's setting in motion how you manage this product going forward. So what vendors do you choose? Well, in this case, we buy this from Maines, and we stock by the bag, and we order by the case. And managers don't have to think about what the receiving quantity is typically going to be like when they do receive this product in the back of the store. So it makes my job as a manager easy because I don't have to think about it anymore. I just load the data in from an invoice, or that invoice is loaded automatically for me. So very important first step. You may not have as many items as you see here. It's all about what you do have, and that's what we're accounting for in this inventory process. In some cases, and in most cases, I should say, we have an integration to the point of sale system. So what's happening is we're tracking the recipes on each individual sale. So if I click on this food appetizer category and click on a specific item, what's happening is that because of the sync with the point of sale system, we're seeing the price, we're seeing the menu item name, and then next we are helping you, showing you how to do this work. You are actually creating up the recipe program. So you are saying, in this case, when we sell this wings entree, this wings item, what's included in that sale is from this list below here. So if I want to add some component, let's just say it's beef hot dogs, and I want to add one each use to this sale item, well, great. Now, when I sell this wings entree, I'm theoretically depleting all this quantity. So now I know my theoretical usage more intelligently. I can also add instructions and a photo as well. So that's some of the setup function, and that's the bulk of the setup tasks that we take on with you and teach you through our 4-part training program. Now let's get into the store level where some of these activities actually do occur. So I'm going to go, at this point, I was logged in as an enterprise user. So what I'm going to do next is actually access a location so that I can start to transact my inventory and as well as transact my labor scheduling workflow. So we're going to go and log in as a manager. You're going to see here a different dashboard. The enterprise user, and we do kind of work from the top down, has changed this dashboard and modified this dashboard to what they feel is most important. So managers really can't change their dashboard experience because the enterprise user is saying these are the issues that we have in this particular week, month, day, and I want you tracking on those. So you can see that here it's a different dashboard layout. We're going to go into the inventory tab here, and this is where we'll actually start some of our first tasks. Now, our inventory system can handle commissary functionality. It can handle multiple locations, different kinds of vendors, integrations. It's a system that can be very big and very broad or very narrow. And what I'm going to show you quickly is how narrow this can be. To get to theoretical analysis, which is somewhat the holy grail of inventory, your managers only have to complete 3 tasks. Task number 1 is tracking their invoices. Now, in some cases, we have an integration with the purveyor, like I mentioned before. So the invoice data is already going to be there. All I got to do is confirm that the cases received are, in the fact, what I ordered. Or if there's any damage cases, I can make an adjustment there. But that invoice data is already going to be there, showing me last purchase price, which means we are a FIFO, or first in, first out system. So if in such case we do not have an integration with the vendor, let's just say it's a local farmer or maybe some other type of produce provider, I can actually add that invoice here manually. Very simple task. And when they do this work, you got to think, who is not doing this work? Well, what's nice about this is it's not the accountant. Your accountant's charging $100 something an hour perhaps, whereas your manager is part of their daily workflow. So you can actually put this task back onto the manager who has more has a better context to the price changes and what's actually happening in the location. So they're on the ground level. They understand more appropriately what's going on. So in this case, the invoice has been designed to just add the invoice number and a check number. I'm not actually going to pay it at this point. It could be done via credit card or another invoice or a check process, whatever is appropriate for that vendor. But next, if I go to my vendor products, all I'm going to do is select the items that I have been receiving. In this case, we'll look at produce. And I'm going to receive 3 cases here, 6 cases here, and 2 cases here. Now I notice on my invoice that the price has actually gone up. So in this case, I'm going to add it's gone up by several dollars, and add in $60 for the unit price of the case. I'm going to go ahead and create this invoice. And at this point, I'm going to move on to my next task and come back to this, because of those that were paying attention, you might have saw something in particular about the numbers and which I had in this invoice. Task number 2 is counting. We operate on a weekly count. We think that's the best way to do it because you order typically weekly. So it's going to really round out your reporting, your suggested ordering guide. Shows you what your average usage is, minimum par levels. We have a global stock safety level as well, all helping generate from this weekly count. And we can have a daily hot count, monthly count, quarterly count. And another thing about the count sheets, as I open this one up, is each one can be designed by location. So it could be sheet to shelf, it could be A to Z. It's totally the location's prerogative to set this up. You can also create different waste lists if you want to as well. We're not going to go into that feature, but what my point is that it's very modular and very customizable by the location. So at this point, we have our count sheet. I'm going to go ahead and show you what a finished count looks like so far in one section. What we'll do next is actually edit the count. Now, in some cases, you can display previous counts and purchases, so the manager will get some sense of what should be there when they actually start their count. So what I'm doing is simply filling out a form. Now, for those of you saying, well, my managers aren't sitting in front of a computer all day, they rather take their tablet around to the counts, we can support that. We don't have tablets at the location. They're still not going to sit at their computers all day. No problem. We can actually print out a worksheet, and you can change up with that worksheet. You can decide which section you're going to print out. So if I want to have all my sections printed out and hand it off to 12 different people to do the count, great. If I just want to do my dairy count or my produce count like you see doing here, that's fine too. You get to decide what you're actually completing during the count process. So at this point, I'm happy with my count sheet, or so far I get pulled away because there's some customer issues, or I have to go into another spreadsheet, and I can go and update my count. And I can always come back to this later. Again, there's a time trigger here. It's looking for that weekly count. Otherwise, again, if it's a daily hot count, it's looking for the count to conclude at the end of the day. So what have I done so far? Invoicing, now I'm doing my counts. Next, task number 3 is closing my week out. Now there's 2 options here. One, I can close my week out automatically and account for, again, an automatic close process to say all the invoices are done, the counts are done. If there's an error, as the enterprise user, I can always open that week back up, have the manager solve that error, and move on from there. Otherwise, I can click on this button and close the week out. What happens is it's reviewing all the invoices and closing my count out naturally, and it's looking at these invoices saying, is there something wrong? Are the numbers matching? Does everything look correct? If so, the system will say, in this case, these 3, excuse me, if not, in this case, it's not. These 3 would showcase there's an error. As a manager, you need to go in and update with your receiving quantity, maybe the price. Something is not correct. What this is doing is my stamp of approval as a manager saying my inventory is correct. And remember, folks, when that is done, that is saying that is cash inside the location. You have to think inventory is cash. Labor resources is cash. It's the same thing as money. So at this point, when I close this out, all my invoices are correct. I can move on with the rest of my day. Okay, we have 5 minutes left. I'm going to jump ahead to labor scheduling, and I'm going to click on the labor tab, and we'll start from here. Now, at this point, what you're seeing is the starting point for this particular location. So I have some staff already scheduled upcoming shifts, and no problem there. I don't have any other workflow tasks here, like any pickups, trades, time off requests, or availability changes. That's no problem. But what we're going to do is start to adjust the schedule so far. So in some cases with the point of sale system, we can push the schedule into the point of sale system to manage clock in and early clock in and late clock out. What that means is if I create the schedule here, drive it into the point of sale system automatically, and an employee tries to clock in, let's say 15 minutes early, and because it takes 15 minutes for them to take their coat off, well, the point of sale system is going to not allow them to clock in, and they need manager override. So there's a push-pull impact using the when to manage system. So at this point, you can see this schedule has been published. It's been sent out to the staff level who've got this on their mobile device. They also have a desktop version of this. They can pull up at a public library. You can print out the schedule. Like I mentioned, you can also push this into the point of sale system. They can receive the schedule via text message as well as email. My gosh, at that point, if someone doesn't show up for work, something is wrong and you need to welcome them to the 21st century. But at this point, we know in some cases in the real world that, oops, I got a big RSVP. I know I'm going to get a lunch rush or whatever the case may be, so I need to alter the schedule. I'm so happy that it's been sent out in 19 different ways to the staff. I need to actually adjust this and send it out one more time. I'm clicking on the little plus button, which allows me to edit the schedule. It says, hey, you want to send it out? You really want to continue? I do. And what I'm going to do is click on the plus sign one more time, and I'm going to send this back out to this one person. So I'm going to say, I need you here at 9:30 a.m., and I need you all to here to 1 and say, emergency prep. Help, help, help. We have a big soccer team coming in. These people eat ravenously. So I'm going to save that shift. And in a moment here, there's going to be an icon that pops up, and its icon is telling me, hey, you made an adjustment to the schedule. Please send out and notify that staff member to the change in their schedule. So Larry Skaggs just got a email notification, a text message notification, went to the point of sale system, and guess what? I can print it out again. So this is a basic part of our solution. We do have labor forecasting, which is an option for you as well. There's a Gantt chart view too that you can pull up and see again if you've been scheduling fairly or who's on deck for the next few weeks in different schedules. So it gives you a nice view there. The forecasting tool can forecast by costs, percent of net sales. It can promote and provide you information on what you do need, who and what you need to schedule based on your anticipated forecasted sales. Many different functions when it comes to the forecasting solution. So we are going to shift gears one more time, and I'm just going to give you some insight into our deployment process because it's important. Again, we take very good care in how we actually work through making your account live. Training's a part of this, as well as other parts of the deployment process. So I'm going to pull my deck back over here, and we'll just talk through this before we conclude our call. So the first is an agreement. We are actually putting together a project program for each location and or enterprise, depending on what we're trying to put together. It might be some analysis on some custom reports that you have. We do have a report creator, so if you have reports that you use all the time, in many cases we can replicate those and push those back into our system, reload that with 5 years of historic data, and guess what? Your spreadsheet can live on in perpetuity. If there's any custom apps or development, for example, maybe data warehousing that we need to put together, we can put that in part of this project program. Training programs, hours of deployment, and what solutions are we actually providing. Once you execute the agreement, we do have what we call a project launch call, crossing our T's and dotting our I's. No money changes hands until after that meeting to make sure we've put together the right proposal for your team. And that call takes about 15 minutes. Next, we start syncing the point of sale systems if that's required. We'll go through and make sure all the data is validated. We're mainly with your daily sales report at the point of sale level, as well as what we were seeing on our servers. And then next, confirm the setup and architecture. Does everything look good to you? Is your IT team and your operational team happy with what we put together? Then next, we begin some of our setup processes. And this could be adding in synchronizing invoices with the inventory purveyor. It could be creating schedule templates, whatever the case may be. Next is create the manager account and begin the training programs. And then after that, we start the support programs and launch the account. And support's nice because you actually have an account manager as well as you can contact them via chat message. You'll have a phone number to call into and or a ticket, or you could look at our library to resolve problems as well. So if we need to add on additional sites and or solutions, we walk through the same process, and the billing cycle can be 30 to 45 days out or immediate, depending on what we've actually put together for you. So that is a basic overview of our solution. I wanted to keep this exactly to 30 minutes, so I think we're pretty close to that. Again, I do appreciate your time coming. This will be an ongoing series of webinars, so if you feel like joining us next week, please do. The link that we provided can give you access to additional trainings, and happy to answer any questions outside of this presentation today as well. Thank you so much. This will conclude.